Hello, let's talk about the Ares. The tank has been in the game for well over a month now, and it is being nerfed. Now, there is a full article which I'll leave linked in the description where they go through all of the changes that are going to happen to the tanks. The long and short of it is that the cooldown is going to get slightly increased, the damage potential is going to get dropped a little bit, and the turret armor is also going to get nerfed. As well as that, the internal module damage is going to get reduced by 10 times. This will mean that you're realistically never going to get a crit with one of these vehicles. It can still happen, but it's really unlikely. Now, I wasn't going to go through each one of these and really nitpick at different things, but if you want to look at all of this, you can do so. I'm going to speak through my opinions and also show you some of the stats for the tanks as well over the past 30 days, because that is quite surprising. The 3 most played tanks on the EU server in the past 30 days are the Ares 75, 85 and 90. SU-130PM is the one after that, and then the Ares 90C is the one after that. That means the top 5 vehicles, 4 of them are the Ares. Now, if we go ahead and look at these stats and go by the tier 8 to start off with, you'll see that the most played vehicle by far, Ares 75. Next best is T44, and it's miles off. But if we actually go for the win rate difference, this is pretty mid, and the actual DPG as well is also pretty mid, meaning that it's probably okay for where it is. And to be honest with you, my opinion also correlates this. The tier 8 and also the tier 9 don't seem to be the worst offenders in this line. In fact, the tier 8 could have probably just stayed without a nerf altogether. The tier 9 is exactly the same story regarding the amount of games played, and if you go by win rate difference, is a bit higher up and more towards the top, and DPG is also kind of similar as the previous vehicle, but again, not really the worst offender. I think that the nerf to this vehicle in particular will probably just set it so that it's very much in the middle of the road. However, when you go ahead and look at the tier 10 of this line, you quickly start to see where the Ares kind of goes wrong. And that is that there is 2.8 million games played nearly, and the next best is a Leo 1. The Leo 1 is going to be quite important in a second, because if you go by win rate difference, it's middle of the pack. Leo 1 is actually a bit below the pack, but overall completely fine. But then if you go by DPG, you quickly then see the Ares is second place. The Concept 5 is first, but is played by better players. And let's be honest, the Concept 5 is probably the highest potential damage dealer out of all of these. But on average, the Ares is played by the same type of players as a CS63 and even a Centurion Action 10. 2 of these tanks, which are very good damage potential and very good tanks at tier 10. Yet the DPG is way off where the Ares is. This shows that the tank is way overperforming when it comes to the potential damage that it can do. If this many people are playing the tank, and they're played by roughly the same amount of people, or same players, the tank is overperforming for the damaging role. And then you take a look at the tier 11. 1.6 million games played. Next best is a Leo 120 at 600,000. Win rate difference, completely middle of the pack. DPG, way ahead of everything else. Now, this is also to do with the fact that the Ares will get matched up against an AS40T, and I know some of you are already commenting that. But the thing is, this tank is played 1.6 million times, and that is the reason why it has a 50% win rate, because most of the time it's coming up against another Ares. And it is also the reason why the AS40T is really having a bad win rate. Not only because the tank itself is not really up to par of other tanks, but also because it gets matched up against an Ares and it's just flat out better than it. But once again, this DPG difference is insane. So where does that actually leave us? Will the nerfs that are going to happen to the Ares really affect the vehicle that much? In my opinion, it won't. At least not for the tier 10 and the tier 11. And I've kind of kept my mouth shut. I've not really spoken about the Ares too much in regards to what I feel about them. But the tier 10 and 11 are definitely OP. They are overtuned and they need nerfing. The tier 8 and the tier 9 probably don't need too much tuning, and you can probably get away with just leaving them as they are. But the tier 10 and 11 are way too toxic, and also they don't really feel like they get punished. It's actually very hard to punish an Ares if it's choosing to YOLO you. If you were to play an FV4005, for example, a tank in which similar toxicity levels, that tank is vulnerable at all times. It has no armor. It has no way of defending itself other than hiding. And then at certain points, you then peek out, you take the shot, and if you miss, you've missed, you might die, and then you go back behind cover. But with the Ares, you have no vulnerability really. You can go in and choose to use your armor. You can side scrape. You have a track mechanic. You then have armor as well on the hull armor. Not to mention that you can go fully hull down, and unless they fire premium rounds, even after the nerf to the tier 11, you're still going to have to fire premium rounds to truly guarantee the pen. You can't pen it. And then it goes ahead, does 1000 alpha to you. Even after the nerf, it's going to be about 900-ish. And then it goes away, hides, 7 seconds or 8 seconds later, pops back up, does another 1000 damage. It doesn't make sense that the Ares basically has everything going for it, and then no real negative. The tier 8 and the tier 9, the tier 9, bit of a better turret armor, but the tier 8 especially doesn't really have the turret armor. So most of the time when you meet it, you can pen it, and it's not really a problem. But with the tier 11 especially, you will struggle to pen this. So what do I think that should be really done? Well, you could gut the armor entirely. The thing is, it would make it a glass cannon, yes, and it would be very, very vulnerable, but you wouldn't have to change anything about the tank. You could keep it having the same gun that it currently has now. You wouldn't even have to nerf the gun, because as long as it's actually HEable by people, or pennable by people, it won't matter. It needs to be vulnerable. It isn't vulnerable at the moment. I really don't know why Wargaming added the track mechanic to this vehicle, because it really does make it even more idiot-proof than it already is. So nerfing the armor, I would say down to like 30mm, and you could do this for the entire line and then buff the gun accordingly to make it actually playable again. Because I do think that if you nerf the tier 8, for example, down to 30mm, it's probably not actually that good. But for the tier 10 and the 11, you could easily nerf them down to 30mm, leave the gun exactly the same, and the playstyle is the same, but the vulnerability is now there. Also, limiting them in the matchmaker. I know there is loads and loads and loads of them in the queue, and it will increase the queue times. But I think for the health of the game, it's not healthy to have this many in the queue. I would say 2 or 3 per team, and no platoons are allowed. If you have a platoon of 3 Ares, it's just dumb. I have platooned with my mates, and we have had very, very high win rates with it. What a platoon of 3 Ares can do in a game is truly just devastating. You pick a target, that's dead. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a mouse. You full clip it and it's gone. You then move on to the next tank, rinse and repeat. You just keep going through and mowing down the entire team. So nerf the armor. I'm saying 30mm. It doesn't have to be that low, just enough so that it's actually vulnerable. And limit them to only 2 or 3 per side with absolutely no platooning allowed. Just like it is with artillery and light tanks. And one more thing, because I nearly forgot right at the very end, there needs to be a way for you to actually see it's on cooldown. Because at the moment, I can't tell. When you're on the orange section of the cooldown mode, it basically makes the same effect as it would when it's fully cooled down from a player that's just looking at it. I feel like the barrel needs to be very, very clear that it's on cooldown and only when it's on cooldown. If it's right on the very tip of it being about to be on cooldown, don't do any effect. Just as soon as it hits cooldown, that's when you give it the effect so that everyone else can see it's on cooldown. You can do this with other vehicles. You can count autoloader shells. You can learn about the reload time of different tanks, but you cannot do it with the Ares. I'm sure there's going to be one person that tells me, oh, actually, Max, you can do this and that. Shh, shh. It's not very obvious. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This was just a very quick video on my thoughts because a lot of people have been asking me. It's a very hot topic. I know not everyone's going to be agreeing with me, and that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Leave your comments down below.